global market view on Prabowo Subianto's leadership, given its military and political background, especially regarding the target of achieving 8% growth for Indonesia.
Hi, Iba. Happy to be here. So certainly, I think since the elections happened in February, and there was a very clear mandate in favor of the incoming government, I think the markets have generally been quite focused on what the political transition will look like, in the past 6-7 months. And since then, in the past probably 2-3 months, more and more closely watching what the commentary has been, what the cabinet is going to look like, and so on and so forth. So certainly a lot of interest around the political handover. And the new team that's coming in, led by Prabowo, what you have seen is that he has in his own commentary certainly spoken about being pro-growth and pro-investment. I'm sure for many of the foreign investors as well as domestic investors, that spells very good news, because this is a backdrop globally where there are companies looking to set up alternative production bases. So any government, any political power that speaks about continuity, speaks about wanting to be growth focused, certainly spells good news. So I would think outside in, certainly the markets have viewed this very, positively. I think the strong mandate is very important because you've seen some other countries and some other governments who have come back with a smaller mandate, but not so much in Indonesia. Indonesia, in fact, has come out with a very strong backing. And since you've the plans to take growth from about 5%, which has been average growth in the past decade, to 8%, many things need to fall into place. I do think that in the next 2 to 3 months, we would hear from the new government what they want to focus on, because it's not very easy to pick growth to that level unless there's a lot of money that goes into investments. A lot of money goes into boosting demand, and also making sure that exports continue to stay strong. So that'll be very clearly important to watch in terms of what are the growth engines that the government focuses on, and how are they going to plan the entire framework. So I think those details will certainly be very important to follow.
Okay, so what is your thoughts on the overall overview for the next Indonesia's policy, as we are seeing same faces like last Kabinet, for example, Sri Mulyani, and then Erlangga Hartarto, Erick Thohir, and so on. So is there any kind of optimism that the market sees for the policy won't be changed that much?
Yes, Cabinet, the president becomes important, and soon after, everybody is focused on who is going to lead in terms of the ministries. And of course, when you see from the financial markets point of view, a couple of positions are very important. The finance ministry becomes the most important, coupled with trade ministry, as well as the interface between Indonesia as well as the global countries. So I would think in terms of the finance ministry, that was a excellent development, which is that Bu Mulyani, retains her seat, comes back as the finance minister. She's a very popular and a very well-regarded person in the circles. And that's why I think that continuity certainly brings a lot more, I would think, to the markets, it's a very good, very favorable sign. So I think when that news broke again some days back, there was a speculation that she would be a part of the new ministry that really helped to stabilize Indonesian assets as well, when you talk about the currency as well as the bond markets. Because what that tells you is that the policy that was being pursued, especially on the fiscal end, which is that, you want to be fiscally prudent, you want to spend where it matters, you want to also focus on revenues. One-sided spending often comes with a lot of macro imbalances. But the finance minister also has a track record of pushing for higher revenues. I think that's the common strain with the incoming president as well, that they are focused on lifting the tax revenue to GDP ratio. So I think that's a positive sign. And overall, of course, you've got Pak Luhut also, who's coming back as an economic advisory board member. So in terms of the advisory council as well as the cabinet ministers themselves, there is a lot of continuity. And that usually also adds credibility to the entire team. Of course, the next step thereafter is what is a top-down framework? What is the president keen on pursuing, and what the ministers want to work with him for. So I think that machinery again will be the next thing to watch out for. But certainly soon after the inauguration, the cabinet minister, though the cabinet is bigger than it was in the past, many of the ministers bring a lot of continuity into the picture.
Okay, and considering that this is one of the largest in history, especially this is the largest in Indonesia history for the total of the ministers and vice ministers. So, how do you think on the effectiveness and also what market sees about this huge leadership's era from Prabowo?
Certainly, it's much. I think when you see some of the nitty-gritties in terms of how the ministries have been carved out, of course, there are, as a coalition setup, there are always compulsions where representation is usually given to most of the coalition partners. But what you see even when planning the ministries is to earmark or to carve out some specific ministries. Especially if you want to be focused on downstreaming, there is an emphasis on that. If you want to be focused on sustainability, there is an emphasis on that. A big cabinet does carry, administrative cost implications, operational implications. So that will have to be managed. And of course, there are many different parties involved as well. So you need to, make the members come together and work cohesively. So these are some of the operational issues. Cost-wise, of course, it will mark an increase from what it was in the 2024 budget. When the ministry has already started work, but in 2025, you'll have the new allocation. So at the face of it, I think the kind of demarcation has worked, shows you where the emphasis of the new government is. But they'll have to certainly tackle many of the cross-party, operational, administrative, as well as the cost implications that usually come with a much bigger number of ministers as well as a lot more ministries.
Okay, and overall, what is your expectation for the government, Indonesia's government right now, and especially when we're on our way on achieving economic growth and to 8%? So, how optimistic are you that this target will be achieved in terms in a period of Prabowo Subianto's leadership?
Well, I think certainly the new government inherits an economy it's about 1.1 trillion nominal GDP. Growth rate has been consistent at about 5% for the past decade. I think they have their goals right in place, which is that they need to lift the growth. Indonesia also among the ASEAN countries has the biggest population, ASEAN 6 countries. So you do want to make growth that is inclusive. Growth cannot be in certain pockets. It needs to be inclusive to make sure that everybody can participate in it, which means that we'll have to put a lot more money behind improving human capital, for example, right? A lot more allocation towards education, health, welfare. That will be, I think, one of the focuses. So that'll be one growth engine. The other one certainly will be investments. I think rightfully so, downstreaming has been pursued. But if you want to, again, move up from there in terms of value-added industries, be it in the renewable space, be it in the electric vehicle space, renew and sustainability kind of objectives, you would, again, need that much more. You need to draw incentives, to draw in investments. It could be via incentives. If you look around the region, if you look at countries like Vietnam, if you look at countries like India, for instance, they've also tried to attract these advanced manufacturing facilities and advanced manufacturing firms. So that will also be something that Indonesia could pursue, because again, a higher manufacturing presence means that your per capita GDP goes up. And again, it kind of makes consumption much more doable. So investment, consumption are two big engines. And finally is exports. Trade has been doing well. Of course, we have slowed down from 2022 highs. But as downstreaming happens, what happens is that your value-added resources become a much bigger part of the export basket rather than exporting the raw materials. Again, that brings in higher value add, that brings in better price effects for exports as well.
Okay.
So I would think it has to be a multi-pronged approach, and that's what the government would look to do.